I'm again happy to meet with you, Claudio, on such short notice and everything. I really wanted to ask you a few questions really pertaining to being a young musician, I guess, in the new industry and sort of how you grew into it from when you started, pretty much. So I really wanted to ask you when you started to play music and really what made you sort of continue playing. What was that thing in your mind that made you keep playing a guitar? 'Cause I know you're a guitarist.
Yeah. Well, I started when I was nine, and I could tell you, I remember a time where music was not in my radar, where I was almost not interested in music, when I was 6 or 7, even I was not one of these kids that was singing or anything like that. My brother was 5 years older, and he was really into music. So two things happen. I think a lot of times, yeah. And if you go into biographies of different composers and musicians, something has to happen. For me was the combination of a change of school. When I was from 8 to 9, a change of school, the combination of the death of my beloved grandmother, and that was sort of like a moment where I wanted to be by myself. I started practicing, and one thing led to the other, and very shortly after I started playing, I became almost like the or the musician in the school. So for any kind of assembly, any kind of special occasion, they will say, "Ragazzi, come, we gotta practice," and I will be the guitar player and the musician as well. Guitar, as you know, in Latin America, the guitar is like is the instrument. So it would be like I was this little kid, and there were like 20 guitar players playing rasgueo, and I will
Yeah,
do the intro, I will do the solos, whatever. So
so
that,
cool.
that, that was a cool thing. So
Yeah,
so one thing led to another, and I never left the sort of, I mean, the person you become as a musician.
I
You
see.
you become almost like it's almost like you're here, and then the music you are the musician, but at the same time is like a parallel life. It's like being I always tell, my daughter is a musician too. She's also a composer, guitar player, and
Oh
I
wow.
say, use your superpower. This is our superpower. You know
So
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is our superpower. It's
I
crazy.
agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that, and especially once you start to really practice and like get it and like feel it a lot internally. Talking about that, like what kind of attributes and what kind of habits helped you grow a lot? What kind of things do you see in musicians that are like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's
I
you
mean,
know,
I'm 67 years old, so it's a long list, and I always been call it eclectic, but I would say a couple of things. One, the first thing that hit me really hard, um, talking about traumatic moments, this is almost like a therapy session, but it is. Uh, Two things happened. The Beggar's Banquet by the Rolling Stones came out. I was 9 years old. And then Brian Jones dies, right?
okay.
My brother was 5 years older. He was really into the Beatles. I grew to love the Beatles and, all the great songwriters, including Stevie Wonder, Paul Simon, whatever, all these amazing songwriters. But I was more into the Rollins. I was really blonde when I was a kid, and the only blonde guy in the whole British invasion was Brian Jones. So I felt immediately very, very close to the image of Brian Jones, and he died. All of a sudden he dies. And I wrote a song for him. It was stupid, I mean, silly song, right? But so that was a moment. Um, again, what was the question? What was the moment where I started? So that was the moment where I started getting into music. You know, getting
Yeah.
into like practicing.
And like, what
But
kind of
then,
attributes? Like, how was what kind of things was he playing, and what kind of things did that integrate into your playing and stuff like that? That
well,
really,
I tell you the truth. I mean, from 9 to 11, I was. I think I probably had some facility. You know, it was not playing the guitar and playing music. I think music there's a level, and I see this in younger people as well. There's a musical intelligence. You know, I mean, there's some people that they, in the same way that math, or that that people have intelligent football, soccer, whatever sports, um food, some people look at a potato, a onion, and a brick, and they see a meal. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do you see a meal with a brick? You know what I mean?
totally get you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I mean, for sure, there's a musical intelligence. People that listen to something and understand. It's like understand the language with no major effort. So as I'm saying, from 9 to 11, at 11 is when I got really serious, and that was another dead at 27. A Band of Gypsies by Jimi Hendrix Experience. That was the record
Hmm.
that I woke up on a Saturday morning. My brother is playing it in the living room, and I thought I was hallucinating. It was amazing. You know what I mean? So at that point, I started to get really into Hendrix, and Hendrix actually opened the door to blues, to jazz, to fusion, to all the things that will at one point become something that from Hendrix I went to love Segovia and Paco de Lucia, and and then John McLaughlin, and then and so I got into jazz a from the Hendrix door. Hendrix was
Hmm.
talking to Miles. Miles was doing all this weird stuff, and I went from psychedelic rock to progressive to Return to Forever. I mean, and then coming back. I don't think when you think about the learning experience, I never think of it as a linear thing. It's always like you start here, and then you look back 20 years back and say, oh wow, that's why this happened, and then you go back to Charlie Christian, and then
That's
you
so
go
cool.
back. Man, I went so back,
Oh wow,
and that I
this is
started
deeply.
no, this is
What
a
is
lute.
Lud?
This is a
Wow,
Renaissance lute. This is
wow.
the grandfather, the grandmother of
You went 2 centuries,
no, no, no,
like
no.
two millennia
This is a
back.
thousand. This is a
Yeah.
1,000 years ago.
Wow.
So and
That's
I
so
don't.
funny.
I mean, I could have gone into the the father of that instrument is even the Arabic lute. The
Hmm.
oud.
The oud, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, oud. But that's a different thing. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's so cool how, like having so many different roots, and how you also talk about you went into jazz and rock and Paco de Lucia, and also, I guess, like from the beginning, from the rasgueo, from the Argentinian rock, Argentinian genres, I should say. And
Yeah.
then how, going more into your professional life, I guess, how were you able to sort of see a vision? How were you able to harness all this and sort of make a vision of your own and have your own sort of voice? How were you able to project that in a professional way, I guess, and start writing music with all
Yeah.
this going on? No.
Well, I tell you two things that I think, if you think about it, it will be a great way to teach young kids, right? But it just happened to be that way. I never saw the difference between for me everything was music. So I never saw the difference between playing, learning, teaching, and composing and writing. So I knew three chords: A major, D major, and E7. And with those three chords, the first thing I did is I wrote a song, this horrible song, with a little riff and stuff. I'm not going to show it.
I was gonna,
No,
you
no,
should
no, no,
send
no,
it
no.
someday.
My old friends know it. So what I'm saying is that as I was learning new chords, for example, at one point I was learning this E minor, the E minor with the
Uh,
with the flat,
like
with
a
the
major
with the
seven.
sharp, well, or the flat five, and I immediately made a song. So it was always like using music to create something, right? So as that evolved, a couple of things happened. It was a very it was a time of on one hand you had when I was very young you had the mild sort of like a junta, the militaries, which was the mid and late 60s, where Onganía and the military junta in Argentina they were killing in the hundreds, not in the thousands, people, so they were, but it was a very prolific time in terms of bands and music going on. A good friend of mine that was going to school with me on to the high school, um, he was playing with this amazing bandoneon player, Rodolfo Medeiros. Rodolfo Medeiros was someone that had recorded with Mercedes Sosa, with a whole bunch of, very well-known people in Latin America, Mercedes Sosa, Luis Alberto Spinetta, Lito Nevia, whatever, a whole bunch of really well-known people. He was playing with this guy, and I was freaking out. I love that band. It was like a fusion tango. What happens is that Piazzolla comes to Argentina. He hears that band. He loved that idea, and he wanted to bring Astor Piazzolla wanted to bring a fusion tango to Europe. So he takes my friend Tommy Gubic, um, from the Medeiros band. He takes it to Europe, and that's how Tommy goes to play with Piazzolla. As a consequence of that, I started playing when I was 17. I was playing with Rodolfo, So
Oh,
it was one of those deals where really where at 17 I was already been playing for 8 years or something. So I was, and I whatever, I felt
it's
that,
a good amount of
I
time. I
felt
mean,
that I had, yeah,
you have the
whatever.
sauce. No.
But man, I mean, it was incredible because at 17 we were playing these big rock concerts in front of like 12,000 people or whatever, and it's all of a sudden this very original music, this fusion tango, rock, jazz, the whole thing. The rockers were going crazy with us because it was really unusual, and we were a group of young kids that were able to play our instruments and play this weird music. So that was my big moment. Argentina was a weird, interesting, still a weird place, but it was an interesting place in those days. There was not really an institution. There was no place like Berkeley. I mean, there's no place like
Mm.
Berkeley really. So we had to do like grupos de estudio, study
Like
groups.
study groups. Okay.
Study groups. So one study group was like a Berkeley thing where we would get together with a real book and play gigs and
Wow.
try to play jazz, whatever.
Right.
The other thing, we had a group that was, we would open the Schoenberg book, and do serial music, 12-tone stuff, and then I was studying with harmony and composition with another student, with another teacher, really well-known composer, Rodolfo Alchurron, and then a guitar, classical guitar teacher in one neighborhood, and a a guy that was crazy about Joe Pass, that lived 2 hours out of Buenos Aires, whatever. I had to take three, a train and three out buses. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I imagine it.
I mean, the things,
Yeah.
this things I would not do today.
To go and play for 2 hours and then come
Yeah,
back.
I mean,
Yeah.
these kids, they have no. When you go to a place, I mean, of course, it can always be a better place. But when you think about all the options and talent and things you can learn just in that corner of Mass Avenue and Boylston, I mean, it's mind blowing. It's a
Yeah.
Eureka.
No, it's so cool. It's so cool to hear how sort of your musical, just like your musical, like taste and like love of different genres and playing with other people mostly, how that sort of opened the door for more opportunities and that started taking you to new places and new people. And I think that's very different from how a lot of people sort of see the music industry nowadays, and especially like as a starting out musician. I feel like a lot of the times we spend a lot more time like in front of the computer instead of playing in practice rooms and sharing the music, as you're saying. I was kind of wondering what if you see like any other, I wouldn't say mistakes, but any other things that starting musicians could do better now. Anything that you would recommend, sort of like the graduating musicians, especially going into film scoring, I guess, going out into the world now, seeing what they could probably do better.
Yeah, I mean, it's always I mean, it's a mystery, in many ways, because
Mm.
on one hand, uh, and I had the opportunity at Berkeley, I mean, what I'm telling you, Argentina, I'm talking about the 70s and the 80s. This is like ages ago before
Yeah.
I moved to here to come to Berkeley. But eh, I used to be the young guy, and I was maybe 20, and the rest of the band were in their 30s and 40s, whatever. Now it's the opposite, and now for example, I had the opportunity to play with some of these Berkeley pianists and kids that they're like, sometimes they're like 19 and 22, whatever, and you say, when did you have time to learn all that stuff?
Yeah.
So it's very the talent's still there. I still think that the human contact, the human connection is gonna be always, the people that actually do well during school and after school are the people that in general not only they have a talent and knowledge and they're good at what they're doing, but also they're reaching out and they're able to connect with their teachers, their peers, with the professional world and all that, right? So I still believe that even though, yeah, we're talking today like if we were at a coffee shop, you know what I mean? And we are, I don't know, we are miles apart, you know. That is great, but still, it's a human connection. I still believe that what, especially in this industry of the film scoring industry, if I'm gonna work with someone, yes, of course, you want to work with the best, right? But not only is the best, you want to work with someone that you can actually sit down, have a cup of coffee, and trust the person, know that the person is going to be there. So I think, I don't know if a mistake, but I think one of the things that people need to realize is that you know, they need to make the human connection. One of the things that I've been saying also to my graduate students is, this is because on a Friday night, on a Friday morning, you pass the test and they give you a license. That doesn't mean that Saturday morning you're gonna go, start racing Formula One. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, the 10,000 hours, in many ways, they start for most people after you graduate. So it is takes some time. Takes some time to get it together, and you guys got to be, everybody, we all have to be patient. Sometimes there's going to be dry times, there's going to be a sometimes everything is happening at the same time, and you got to be really organized. And some of the times nothing is happening, and you say, well, what did I do?
What? Yeah. What could I have done better? No.
Yeah, yeah.
No. Yeah. I guess I just want to ask like one more question, especially since you're on the subject of sort of human connection and human interaction.
Uh-huh.
After looking a bit at the kind of movies and projects you've participated in, stuff like The Price of Sugar or The Alamo, or a Race, the study of race and legacy and everything like that.
Mm.
It's clear that to you the human aspect is sort of very important. Working with these documentaries and working with subjects that are very that treat like social causes and that are responsible to humanity, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that is something that also a lot of musicians should always take into account when they're working, and sort of try to share that, or is that
I
sort of
No, I mean, yes, but in a way, I think the important thing is for us to, or for anyone to belong to a community. So in other words, if you like, for example, I never liked Disney. I was more into Tom and Jerry than I never liked Mickey Mouse. I'm sorry, the Donald Duck. I was never into that stuff. I was more into El Coyote and whatever. I mean, I
yeah,
don't even know the names. So what I mean is like, if you belong or if you relate to people that are that are like you, I think you need to move or something like that. No, no. Okay. A If you are a member of a particular community, and that community is also an artistic community, both musicians, actors, painters, filmmakers, editors, whatever they are, so then you're gonna end up doing the type of movies, or you're gonna be scoring, or you're gonna be participating in projects that are of your belief. That's what I'm saying. So I was into not into politics, but I had certain beliefs, and then I gravitated to a particular community that was a community not of people that were wanted to make Star Wars and to want to make Disney movies and stuff like that, but people that wanted to make some interesting social documentaries and nature documentaries and movies that had an element of interracial relationships and stuff like that, stuff that I believe on. So then you're part of that community, and you become as part of that community, you become a composer in that community. If I was a really into uh, I mean, Star Wars, I respect it. It's very hard to make it, and I respect, for sure, everybody involved, especially the composers, John Williams and all those guys. But it's not my thing. I was, as a kid, I thought Star Wars was horrible because I was coming from Kubrick. I was coming from 2001. If you grew up with Kubrick and then you see George Lucas, this is a joke. This is a cheap. It's sort of like, I mean, that's the way I saw it at that point. So what I'm saying is like,
it's very funny. Yeah, that's
you know what I mean? If you belong to a community, then you just things are gonna happen. It's not like I have the flag of the social documentary composer, whatever. You know what I mean? It's just being part of a community. Uh, as you grow, as you're young, your community is gonna be mostly you want to belong to people that are older than you. As you grow older, you're gonna be very happy to be playing with people that could be your sons and daughters, and you know what I mean, and still be active. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think that's really cool. Honestly, I appreciate a lot, especially like the social message and talking a lot about community and integrating that not only into your practice but into your composing and the people that you work with and sort of surrounding yourself a lot with the things that you like in every way, no? And um,
Man, I
yeah,
feel
no,
that
it
I
happens so
feel
naturally as well, no? Sorry.
it does, I mean, it does take work, as you know, but I mean, I do feel the thing that I feel that is blessed, or whatever, that I've been lucky, is the fact that, man, it's gonna be, in a couple of years, it's gonna be almost 60 years that I've been doing music. You know what I'm saying to you? Of course, I'm not Frank Sinatra. I'm talking about. I'm not, but I mean,
Uh,
I have a good living.
yeah,
I'm teaching stuff that I like to teach on top. You know what I mean? I'm teaching stuff, even that class that I teach, the world music class. I teach what I like to teach. I'm not teaching something that is imposed to me or anything like that. And then Berkeley is a special place. It is a special place. It's an institution where you could actually have freedom to express your artistic view. And um, and our department, I think, is very important because it combines the social thing, the almost like psychological, emotional, and then musical, you know eclectic, everything.
yeah, I agree. I'm sorry for the noise here. I'm in a
Where
classroom,
where
so
where are you? Yeah,
I'm in a classroom. Yeah, yeah. I'm
cool.
in 1W. I'll be working here in a moment. So,
One W.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a
Who's
show
playing?
here.
Who's playing today?
I'm not sure. It looks like a senior recital.
Oh, nice. Are you
I'll,
doing
I'll,
sound? Are you doing sound?
I do. I run cameras here. I'll run that camera. I'll
Oh,
be like directing cameras
nice.
here. Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Okay.
I
So you
guess
said,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that also, since you were talking about Berkeley being such a special place, like the job that I have, I've always worked like in the camera crew or organizing cameras for events, and that has taught me a lot. Actually, that has taught me a lot, more than I ever expected. It has taught me a lot, especially about like film scoring. So it's also very like full circle for me
Yeah,
to know
right.
about like that side of the whole thing. But I know, Claudio, honestly,